So what I have here are some tools and materials that you need to do the linoleum block printing. This is the linoleum that we're going to use. Yours is 6 by 9 inches. So when you draw your image, you're going to want to make sure that it's the right size for the block that you have. Okay, I'm going to do just a small, almost like a stamp, to show you how to get started. Also, what I have here is this tool that links along the edge of your table, and this allows you to carve safely without getting your fingers in the way of the carving tool. Okay, so before we even get started with carving, you're going to come up with your design, and I decided I wanted to do some kind of inspirational word, kind of my words of the month for myself this month. Up on the board here, focus, awareness, and intention, I decided to share with y'all. So I'm going to go ahead and make a focus stamp. So this is what it's going to look like, but because it's lettering, if I lay this down like this and trace it down and carve it directly like this on the stamp, when I flip the stamp over, it's going to be backwards. The word will be backwards. So any lettering needs to be done backwards. So I've drawn it the way I want it to look. Then I took this over to the light table, flipped it upside down, and traced it backwards. So I can carve it backwards on my linoleum block. So I'm going to go ahead and we're just going to use a graphite transfer method. You can look online and there's lots of methods that are potentially more exact and a little fancier than this, but this is the method that is kind of the easiest and what we have available to us. The graphite on the back so that I can trace it onto my block. Then I'm just going to trace over my lines.
Oh. So it's kind of what we did with the scratch board.
Yeah, it's a lot like the scratch board at this point. So I'm just going to get these outlines in place, and then be bigger and potentially more intricate than this. I would like I'm going to be carving the background away and leaving the lettering. So remember, there's two different ways to do these kinds of block prints. You can carve into your image and have that be the recessed area that's not printed, in which case your negative space will be printed, or you can carve away the negative space and leave the positive space raised, which will be the printing surface. And before I move this, I'm going to make sure I got everything on there, and looks like I do. So, you know, I might want to just make sure, like, quickly that I know what gets carved and what doesn't. So I'll just fill that in, straighten that out a little bit. Make sure it's exactly how I want it before I start carving. Okay. Now I'm ready to start carving. So I have this tool, and in this handy dandy little tool, this is a handle with an end that screws on and off to accept the blades. And the blades are kept inside the handle. So it's real easy to keep track of everything. This little blade is like a liner blade. If you want to kind of get an edge before you start carving, you can use this one. And then there are 4 different sizes of carving blades, from a narrow line, medium, a wider line, to more of a scoop that'll take out larger areas at a time, and you can actually get interesting shapes with this. I prefer using these lines and rather than this flat one, so I'm going to start that way. Okay, can you see this? I'm going to fit the other end in, the side that's not sharp, into the edge. And how can I tell if it's sharp or not sharp? Especially on this bigger one, I can't really tell if it's sharp or not sharp just by first glance. But if I look, this one is curved up on the edges, and there's a little flat kind of a carved out area where it's been sharpened to a point. On the other side, it's really rounded and not sharpened to a point. So on the smaller ones, it's much more obvious. So I'm going to screw that in there tightly and then just put all the other tools away. Bring this back up here. So the first thing I'm going to do is kind of find some of my edges. This tool, this wooden background tool, is crucial for what I want to do is carve away from myself. And if I didn't have this here, I might be tempted to do this. And if I do that, what am I likely to have happen? Yeah, I'm likely to have this slip and run into my fingers, and that would not be comfortable. So we're going to use these boards, and I have enough of them for you guys to use. And so a little bit of a rocking motion on these longer cuts. And I'm going to start by just kind of outlining my positive space.
How hard do you have to press? Yeah, is it like easy as cutting a scratch board, or is
No, there's a little bit of pressure that I'm putting on it, and if I push too hard, I'm more likely to slip. And it also has to do with the angle that you're going in. So I'm going in at a fairly shallow angle. If I was trying to dig down really deep, then you'd have to push harder. The other key to that is that you really don't need to go very deep. You don't need to carve it very deep, because the brayers are flat that you use to put the ink on, and they will only get what is the highest point. While with that said, though, if you leave stripes of things that are high, you know, if I go in here and I make these stripes and I don't quite get it all carved out, then some of those areas might still show. And you're going to know that because you'll take a test print or two at the beginning if you have areas that are still showing. And it's recommended that before you overcarve things, or if you have some question about whether or not an area should be carved out, go ahead and do a test print, because that's going to help you figure out what else needs to be done. Okay, and that's how reduction printing is done as well, is to carve a little bit, print, and then carve more. All right, so I'm going to continue to kind of outline this, and let me just get one edge of it outlined. I'm probably off the camera right now, but that's what I need to do to be safe.
No, you're still on the camera.
Okay. Get this one outer edge outlined, and then I'm going to switch blades at this point.
Are you going to go for the wider one?
I'm going to go for a wider blade to get some of the negative space removed.
So which blades do you think are recommended if you wanted to do more of to get rid of the positive space?
If you're going to use the background as your inking surface, then you'd probably, it's just whatever's going to fit into the space that you're carving. So you're going to adjust according to what's going to fit the space that you're trying to carve. So now I'm going to start where I made this line right here, and it kind of gives me a place to start so I don't accidentally go into the letter, or the edge of the letter. And I've got the biggest, roundest one now, and I can go in and carve out all of that area behind it. Now you can choose to make this back area textured by the way you carve it and actually intentionally leave lines, or you can carve it away completely. Go at it from the other direction, I think I'd still be okay because that indentation that I made first is going, if I'm not pushing too hard, is going to stop my blade from going too far.
But is there a recommend to do the other way?
I would start the other way, yeah. All right, so then I just need to continue. I would probably, if I was doing this whole thing and not just demonstrating in a short period of time, I would do the outline of my positive space on all sections, and then go through and just spend time carefully removing the negative space until I had what I wanted left. So is there any other questions? When you're ready, you're going to go ahead and come to me, and I'll get you the tools and materials that you need. But first we're going to have you get your imagery approved. So once you have your topic and your imagery, keep in touch with me directly through that process so that you don't get something fully developed and we go, oh no, that's not going to work. Okay?